Salutations, dear students. Get ready to embark on a journey of knowledge and discovery. Please open up your English grammar book, step up English grammar and composition. A verb is a word that describes an action, occurrence, or state of being. It is the main part of a sentence that shows what the subject is doing or experiencing. For example, let's run to the corner and back. Number 2, Mrs. Malti is our English teacher. And number C, do you have some extra clothes? So run, is, and have, these are the example of verbs, doing words, which express action or state of being. There are two types of verbs, main verbs and auxiliary verbs. Main verbs, also known as action verbs, are the central part of a sentence that convey the main action or state of being. They can stand alone and make complete sense in a sentence. Main verbs have meanings related to actions, events, and states. Most verbs in English are main verbs. Example number 1, we went home straight after the show. Went here is main verb. In number 2, it snowed a lot that winter. So here, snowed is a main verb. And in C sentence, several different types of volcanoes exist. Here, exist is a main. Auxiliary verbs, also called helping verbs, are used together with the main verbs to create different verb tenses, ask questions, form negatives, and express possibility or necessity. There are two types of auxiliary verbs, primary auxiliary verbs and modal auxiliary verbs. Number 1 is primary auxiliary verbs. Primary auxiliary verbs are used to create verb tenses. The three primary auxiliary verbs are be, have, and do. Examples, she is reading a book. Is used to create the present continuous tense. Number 2, they have finished their homework. Have is used to create the present perfect tense. He didn't go to the party. Did is used to create the simple past tense. And second one is modal auxiliaries. These are used to express abilities, possibilities, permissions, and obligations. Modal auxiliaries include can, could, may, might, must, ought to, shall, should, will, and would. And there are examples also. Tanya could learn to fly helicopters. Could helps the main verb learn. And in second, Aryan will drive to Nainital tomorrow. Will helps the main verb. Finite and non-finite verbs. A finite verb is a verb that shows agreement with the subject of a sentence in term of number and person. It changes according to the tense, past, present, and future. A non-finite verb is a verb form that doesn't show agreement with the subject of a sentence. Finite verbs change their forms when there is a change in the number or person of the subject. Finite verbs also have different forms in different tenses. For example, I go to school in the morning. Emilia goes to school by van every day. In the above sentences, verbs go, goes. It shows the tense and their form is influenced by the subjects I, Emilia, respectively. So these verbs are finite verbs. And non-finite verbs? Non-finite verbs don't change their form when the number or person of the subject changes. For example, she tiptoed round the house so as not to wake anyone. And number 2, entering the room, we found the child sleeping. In sentence number A, the base form of the verb Wake is used with to. Its form is not influenced by the subject she. And in second sentence, the present participle of the verb enter is used to introduce a phrase. Its form is not influenced by the subject we. Object of a verb. The object of a verb is a noun or pronoun that receives the action of the verb. There are two types of objects, direct objects and indirect. A direct object is a noun, pronoun, clause, or phrase. Direct objects follow action verbs that require something or someone to receive the action. You can identify the direct object by using this simple formula. Subject plus verb plus who or what equal to direct object. For example, she brought me my breakfast. The subject is she and the verb is brought. Next, ask yourself the question who or what about the verb brought. What did the subject she bring? She brought my breakfast. Therefore, the direct object is my breakfast. And indirect object precedes the direct object and tells to whom, or for whom the action of the verb is performed, as well as who is receiving the direct object. It always modifies the verb. So there are many examples. She brought me my breakfast. For whom did she bring breakfast? The answer is me. So me is an indirect object. So consider the examples again. In both the sentences, the verbs need objects to complete the meaning of the sentence. Transitive verbs. Transitive verbs are verbs that require a direct object to complete their meaning. They transfer the action from the subject to the direct object. The direct object receives the action of the verb and answers the question what or whom after the verb. For example, she ate an apple. So transitive verb is ate and direct object is apple. Next example is they built a sand castle. Transitive verb is built and direct object is sand castle. Now intransitive verbs are verbs that don't require a direct object to complete their meaning. They express an action or state that doesn't transfer to an object. For example, the birds flew in the sky. So intransitive verb is flew. He laughed at the joke. Intransitive verb is laughed. So these verbs doesn't require any object. Now ditransitive verb. Ditransitive verbs are verbs that require both a direct object also and an indirect object also to complete their meaning. The indirect object receives or benefits from the direct object. For example, she gave her friend a gift. Ditransitive verb is gave. Indirect object is friend and direct object is gift. Incomplete verbs, also known as linking verbs or copula verbs, are verbs that don't show action but instead link the subject to additional information about the subject. They require a complement to complete their meaning. Common examples of incomplete verbs include is, am, are, was, and were. Examples, she is a doctor. So incomplete verb is and complement doctor. Another example, they were happy. Incomplete verb were, complement happy. And next is complements. Complements are words or phrases that provide additional information about the subject or object in a sentence. They are required to complete the meaning of the verb. Number one is subject complement. A subject complement provides information about the subject and follows an incomplete verb. Examples, he is a teacher. Subject complement teacher. They are students. Subject complement here is students. Object complement. An object complement provides information about the direct object and follows a transitive verb. Examples: she painted the wall blue. Object complement is blue. We found the room empty. Object complement is. So here is practice time assignment, students. In the following sentences, you have to underline the verbs, write transitive or intransitive for them, and circle the direct objects. There are 8 sentences. Number 1, Mr. John's cat watched the birds in the trees. Number 2, the small boat moved slowly through the grey sea. Number 3, Dolly tripped on the bottom step and fell downstairs. Number 4, please order a burger and a milkshake for me. Number 5, we arrived at the stadium 10 minutes before the game started. 6, do you play tennis every day? 7, after the election, the Prime Minister assembled his cabinet. 8, at our last meeting, we discussed the problem of leaking pipes. So you have to do this practice assignment. So children, we have successfully completed today's grammar topic, verbs. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.